How to actually stop getting into ruts. Okay, now before I start this video, I'd like to say that you'd actually never stop getting into ruts, right? You're actually never gonna stop getting into ruts. And you know, you might say that, but the title of this video is contradictory then, because you said that I'll never get into ruts. But we can reduce the number by a lot. Like if you're getting into 3 ruts every 6 months, right? If you're getting into like a rut every 2 months, we can definitely make that 1 rut, or even like 3 ruts a year instead of 3 ruts every 6 months. That's possible. What is not possible is saying that I'm never gonna fall into a rut ever in my life again. Like till I'm 80, I'm gonna keep grinding every single day. There's not gonna be one day where I fall off my good habits and I just skip meditation. Like that's never gonna happen. There's gonna be days where you don't do meditation. There's gonna be days where you don't work out. There's gonna be days where you don't make videos, right? And that's the truth. You need to embrace that. Same with nofap. People love doing nofap. They're like, I'm gonna keep a streak. The max you're gonna get is 14 days if you keep a streak, bro. If you accept that I'm gonna fail someday, and instead of that you create a timetable for a month saying that I only will fap on these days, it's gonna get lesser. FPS, faps per month, FPM, faps per month are gonna get lesser. That's how you stop that. But anyways, coming back, how to actually stop getting into ruts. So the thing is that when do people actually get into ruts, right? Is that when you've been doing an activity for around a week, in fact more, I'd say around 2 to 3 weeks, right? The 3 week mark is when your quality starts dropping, right? So if I'm reading, right? If I'm reading around 50 pages a day for 3 weeks straight, every single day, right? Or every second day. Once I've been doing that for 3 weeks is when the quality will start dropping. I'll be like, I've been reading 50 pages every day. I've finished around 2, maybe 3 books, right? Maybe I should lower the amount of pages I read because it's kind of boring. And when you start doing that, that's where the fall off starts, right? After you stop reading like 50, it'll go to 40, 25, 10, 5, and eventually you're not reading at all. By the 5th week, you've left the habit, you're not reading at all. And then after a few weeks, you're like, oh shit, I've not read in so long, I need to start reading again. And it's difficult to start reading again because you stopped reading. And why you don't know why you stopped reading, right? In your mind, you're a lazy piece of shit. That's why you stopped reading. But you're actually not. Let me explain to you how, right? And people usually fall into ruts when you start a habit, right? Like, do you ever stop brushing? I hope not, right? Like, you never just wake up and like, I'm not gonna brush. I don't feel like brushing. You always brush, right? At least if you're like me, I always brush. I never skip brushing, right? Or do you ever skip meals? Actually, that's a bad example because many people do actually skip meals. Brushing is a good example, right? Do you ever wake up and not wash your face if you've been doing that? If you shave after you wake up, right? Like some people do that. They shave as soon as they wake up. You usually don't skip that, right? Why? Because you've been doing them for so long, right? And they're easy to do. Same thing with these tasks, like reading. You don't start off with 50 pages a day, because it'll feel good for the first 2 days. After that, you'll stop because there's too much resistance, right? Because you use that motivation to read that day, right? You use the motivation you had on that day and you expended your willpower. You expended all of your willpower, right? And it's a part of deep work, right? To expend your willpower. However, your willpower reserves are limited. What you could do is maybe I could read 15 pages that day and I could use that willpower on something else, right? And I still have the potential willpower I have for reading, which I will carry on to the next day. It does carry on, trust me. And the thing is that people Also, they avoid talking about burnout, right? They don't like talking about burnout because people think that burnout is, it's like, it's very wishy-washy, right? Like it doesn't actually exist. But let me tell you, burnout absolutely does exist, dude. Like if you've been on self-improvement for long enough, you start noticing, right? Like, same with me posting videos. I just didn't post for like 2-3 weeks straight. Burnout. I just uploaded videos for around a month and a half, I guess. 3 days a week. Like 3 days a week. On and off, right? But after that, I stopped. Why? Because that's not how it works. You just don't start uploading videos 3 days a week and expect to do it for years. There's gonna be days where you miss. There's gonna be weeks. And you need to accept it, that you will burn out. So you need to prepare yourself for that burnout, right? Same with me working out. I stopped working out. Why? Because I was burnt out. Now I want to work out again. Why? Because I do generally love the activity. I don't hate the activity. I don't want to quit. You don't want to actually quit. You get into ruts. They're called ruts for a reason. They're not called quits. Because a rut is where you stop doing something for a limited amount of time, where you're stuck doing nothing, right? To get back into your habit, you need to believe that you'll eventually burn out, right? And be prepared for that. Like, I'm eventually gonna burn out someday, right? Because if I start this habit at 50 pages a day, I'm gonna burn out very easily. If I start at 10 pages a day, I'm gonna read it for at least a few weeks, right? Maybe a month if I'm good at it, right? And eventually, for a few days, I'm gonna stop. And be okay with that. You need to be okay with that to, continue it. And you need to tell yourself that I am going to stop after a few days. I know it for a fact because that's how it works. And when you say that to yourself, that I'm going to stop after a few days, you're going to come back because you've acknowledged, that okay, I'm going to stop, my body is going to stop, I need to make the effort to come back. And that's when you'll get out of your ruts faster, because once you admit that I'm going to get in a rut, like, of course I hope not, but I know that someday I'm gonna get in a rut. Like same thing. As soon as you're born, only one thing is certain, that you'll die one day. And till you accept you'll die one day, you're gonna be living like an anxious little twerp. So keep smiling, stay serious. No, don't stay serious. Stay smiling, stay fun, and enjoy.